Hi there, it's Thomas George, and I'm joined by Christopher Carvalho, and we're going to discuss some project management tips for creating an album.
So Thomas, what do you think are like the main points? Like, what are your top tips for managing the project of producing an album?
Actually getting it done. For me, a problem I have all the time is I would just write so many songs and never release them. I've got, I don't know how many songs, tons and tons of songs, maybe hundreds of unreleased songs. I've just made for fun because I enjoy writing music so much. I just make the music and never finish the track. So I guess the number one tip is don't try and write loads and loads of songs. Just focus on that one album and get it done.
Obviously, you have to write the songs, right? But at what point do you stop and go, this is an album, or now I'm ready to release? Like, because one question, this comes up a lot with artists, right? It's like, some artists like, oh, I don't think I'm ready to release yet. And then I'm like, says who? Like, says who? Like, who is that? You know, at some point, someone has to hear the music for them to decide that's the case anyway, right? So when do you think you're ready to produce and maybe even release that album?
It really depends. For me personally, never. The songs are never finished. They're never good enough. They could always be better, but you just have to release it, which is why I think working with a mastering engineer is so important. But I can master myself. I know how to master, but it will never get done. I will go back and I'll tweak it. I'll always go back to the mix. I'll change some of the sound design. But if I work with a mastering engineer and we've got a deadline, so they want this song sent over at a certain day, I'm going to get them as good as I can and send them to the mastering engineer, and then that's it. They're done.
Because that's a human being that you're also like delivering the music to, and then they are a kind of like quality assurance process for you, right? So you deliver it to them, but also I suppose there's that psychological like, oh, I've told, you know, whoever they are, I'm going to deliver them some mixes for an album. So there's like a psychological accountability piece in there. But then also you can, you know, do a bunch of work, make a bunch of tracks, send it off to them, and kind of knowing yourself that like they're going to give you some feedback because they're someone that you trust, right? To give you feedback and to say, look, maybe I can't master these mixes. They're not good enough. Or I think you need to work on that, right? Because what better ears than a mastering engineer to tell you that, right?
Yeah. Also, if you're collaborating or working with another person, that can really help. They don't necessarily have to write the music with you, but like I said, a mastering engineer or a mix engineer or even someone who can help you release the music, because you're going to give yourself a deadline. You don't want to let that other person down. For example, this call we're doing right now, we said we're going to talk at 11:30. So I made sure all the cameras and lights and all the notes and stuff are ready for 11:30 because I didn't want to let you down. If I was just doing the video by myself, then maybe it get done tomorrow, maybe another day, who knows? But if you've got another person holding you responsible, yeah, it's gonna make you get the task done, whatever it is.
Yeah, right. I suppose that's also like a good part of like having a team, right? Because like I know with my clients, like artists that I work with and stuff like that, them being accountable to me and me just kind of like, hey, what you been up to is huge for them, because then they have to think about what they've been up to. They have to look back and go, like, that's what I always ask. I'm like, oh, hey, what you been up to last week? What are you going to do next week? You know, because we're just left to our own thoughts. We don't often ask ourselves those challenging kind of questions, right?
Yeah. Also, when there's a deadline, we all do it. Well, I'm sure we all do it. We kind of panic and rush and get it all done a lot more towards the end of the deadline than a few weeks before.
Yeah, sure. That productivity curve definitely ramps up, doesn't it?
It reminds me of doing piano lessons as a kid. I'm sure people can relate to this if you did any kind of music lessons as a kid. So you might spend most of the week just practicing a little bit, but an hour before your lesson, you'll be going through that sheet music as fast as you can just to get it all done as soon as possible. Yeah.
Like the ratio between like playing Game Boy and playing piano in that in that week kind of switches a bit.
Well, it's like a kid when you have an essay at school. The night before you get so much done, but the month before hardly anything. But going back to making the album, it's for me, I just really enjoy writing the music and producing so much. I do find it hard to actually kind of take that switch from enjoyment to getting that product done. So in a way, it's great because I can have fun. I can write lots of music. But if you have a partner or a business partner or anyone, even a family member, you can show them your music and say, which ones do you think are the best? Because for me, it's always the last song. The latest song's the best one. The old stuff's rubbish. The new stuff's so much better, when it's not always the case. So if you've got someone that you trust, just play them some of your songs and say which one's the best. And generally, it's better with a non-musician, because if you show a musician, they're going to be saying, oh, I like the chord progression here, or I like this sound design, or I like this sequence, or something musical. That they're not really going to have an emotional feeling that a non-musician may have. If you show a non-musician, they say something like, this one sounds happy, this one sounds floaty, something really bizarre that I can't really comprehend. But a non-musician will have an emotional feeling to your music rather than break it down analytically. And for me, because I do a lot of production stuff, and I teach a lot of music production, I'm always looking at the like the mixing, the sound design, and the music theory, when really music's about an emotion. But switching your brain from that logical side to an emotional side, well, I find quite difficult at times. So having someone you trust, you can play your songs to, or mixes, or whatever it is, can really, really help.
Cool. Do you have any lasting tips about managing the production of an album?
You just have to do it. It sounds really like obvious, but forcing yourself to do it, sometimes you just really, really, really don't want to do it. But you just have to. It's like going to the gym. Most of us don't want to go to the gym, but as soon as we're there, it's not that hard. But the hardest part is actually going down there and putting your shoes on. Same with producing music. The hardest part for me isn't actually writing the music or mixing. As soon as I start, it's great. It's finding that window of time and forcing myself to start, because we all have a million excuses why we can't do something. But you need to ask yourself, what's the most important thing? What do you want to be remembered for? What do you really enjoy doing? And for me and a lot of people, it's the music I produce. And yeah, that should be, obviously it's easier said than done. I make a lot of mistakes. I don't always do the stuff I should be doing, but you have to force yourself to do it, which I think can be really, really hard. I'm sure you can resonate with this, Chris, and other areas of life as well. It's not just about making songs. It's, always the thing that's the hardest, and the thing you never want to do is often the most important thing, or is for me anyway.
That makes sense.
Anyway, so thanks for watching this video. Hope you found it useful. Like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. Thanks for joining me, Chris. Yeah, and we'll see you in the next one.